Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have a video that is my book haul for the month of January. I've been trying to do more book hauls lately because I've been buying a lot of books lately, and I've just been having a blast doing it. My wallet is not having a blast doing this, but I am having a blast doing it. So I bought a ton of books. I bought 19 books. This is not counting new releases. New releases I really don't put in book hauls because those are like new, and also I do dedicated videos on new releases. So this is just talking about the books I bought at like used bookstores. Actually, I think, now that I think about it, every single book in my pile I got from between two used bookstores that I just went through the whole month of January, just back and forth between them. One of the bookstores almost never updates their shelves. They're really small. And so I go there all the time, and occasionally something new will pop out. So I usually buy like one book when I'm at that bookstore, but it's not often. The other bookstore, they update every day. Just about. And there are times where I've literally like seen things on the cart and I'm like, I'm gonna grab it while I see them shelving it from the cart because I don't want to lose this because they update and lose the book so fast. So without further ado, why don't I get into my books? I think I have 19 physical books, although one of the books is like a bind-up of 3 books. Or sorry, 2 of the books are binds-ups of 3 books. So anyway, speaking of the bind-ups, one of them I got was Timothy Zahn's Cobra War Trilogy. This is published by Baen Books. If you've been following my channel, you saw a few weeks ago a video about Timothy Zahn writing new books for Baen under his Icarus Hunt and Icarus Plot series. And I learned that news because the company, publisher Baen, reached out to me to let me know the news, which was very exciting. This book includes the books Cobra Alliance, Cobra Guardian, and Cobra Gamble. I've been looking for those books in mass market paperback for a while. I would find like books 2 or 3, but never book 1 or never all 3 of them together. And I didn't really want to buy a later book if I didn't have an earlier book. I've done that a few times, and I try not to do that if I can help it. So that's why when I saw this bind up at the bookstore, I was like, I gotta get it because it's got all 3 of them together. Now, it's in that trade paperback form, and it's kind of heavy, and it's not, I don't like bind-ups. I don't like reading the process of reading a bind-up as much, so I don't particularly love this design, but the cover is spectacular. That is just a spectacular cover. I wonder who did it. Let me check to see who did that cover art, because it is just, Dave Seeley did the cover art, and it is spectacular cover art. And so I do like the cover, but I wish it was not a bind-up, but hey, at least I have the books now, so I will read those eventually. Next, I have a Star Trek book, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Missing by Una McCormack. Una McCormack has written some of the best Star Trek books I've read. She's also written some Star Trek books that I thought were meh, they were okay. But one of the superb books that she wrote is dealing with the Fall series, and this book takes place right after the Fall series, and it takes place at the exact same time as my favorite Star Trek standalone novel, which is Takedown by John Jackson Miller. Not only do they take place at the same time, but both Una McCormack and John Jackson Miller actually had conversations to make sure that their books lined up, which I think is pretty cool. And just look at that cover. That's the new Deep Space Nine and all the ships approaching it. I mean, that's just spectacular. Like, I love the way that the new Deep Space Nine book covers pop because of that blue behind them. It looks really good, and it looks really eventful. It looks like something big's happening because all those ships are there. So I'm really excited to read it. It looks like a pretty short book, so it should be fun. Next, I have another novelization. This one's Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. It's the novels by J.M. Dillard, based off the screenplay for the movie. Now, this is an atrocious movie. It's so painful to watch. It's so hard to watch. I think, even though like I do not like this movie and hate it, I think it's more rewatchable than Nemesis for me, but I think it's just a terrible movie. At least this gets Star Trek a little bit. But J.M. Dillard has this ability to just really enhance the storytelling, as did Vaughn and McIntyre. The two of them, I've read some novelizations by them. Particularly, Dillard did the novelization of Star Trek VI, and I thought she did a superb job with Star Trek VI. I thought that it was already, I think, the best Star Trek movie. My favorite is Star Trek IV, Voyage Home, but Star Trek VI, I think, is the best. And she enhanced it even more and made an even more beautiful story. So I'm hoping that her novelization here will be able to advance the story and make it actually a good story. It can't be superb because this story will never be superb. But for a novelization, it's over 300 pages, which is actually a pretty substantial number. You know, some of them are really short. I think that the Search for Spock was about 300, and then also the Wrath of Khan was like 200 something, so it was low 200s. It was a really short book. So the fact that this is a nice 300-page book is about right. It's going to add enough, I think. So I'm excited to get into that. Not found at many bookstores. I'm going to move away from Star Trek for a moment and talk about some John Grisham books. I got 2 John Grisham books in January. One of them is called The Brethren by John Grisham. Don't really know much about it. I don't always read the back covers of his books because it's just kind of fun to go in blind. The other one I bought was The Rooster Bar. Now this one, it's a much shorter book. It's only like just under 300 pages, it looks like. And John Grisham, of course, is an author I've just been loving. I've just been eating up his books. The Litigators was awesome, which I think I have that video coming shortly. I also read the Jake Brigance books. I've just been loving everything I've been reading from him just about. And so I'm excited to read these. My dad, who's a big Grisham fan, told me about The Rooster Bar, and he seemed to remember really, really liking it, and he described to me what he liked about it. And so I'm actually really excited for this one. This one, I'm sure I'll love it because it's John Grisham, but I don't know much anything about it. So if you've read these, let me know your thoughts. Next, I have some Agatha Christie books. So Agatha Christie is super hard to find. And not only is she super hard to find in bookstores in my area, she's super hard to find used copies of the version of the book I like. Mass market copies, you can see, but they're tattered, they're old, they're falling apart, and they're teeny tiny, and the print is teeny tiny. And it's not the experience I like when reading Agatha Christie books. All the Agatha Christie books I've read are the trade paperback size, this type of size. And so when I was looking in bookstores, I saw they had a bunch of them in the trade paperback size. And I was like, I gotta snatch those up. And so I did. And so I have more Agatha Christie books to read. I try to read one every 2 or 3 months. And I was super excited to find them. And not only that, but they said they're going to be getting them in more regularly because people who started buying these trade paperbacks are starting to turn them in because they're getting rid of their series. So this is like the first wave, so I can't wait to buy more. So the first one I have is At Bertram's Hotel. I think, first of all, the way that this feels, this is a very smooth feeling for a cover. I know that's a very OCD thing to do, but I like the way this feels. And also, I think the yellow really pops the book. This is a bright yellow, and it catches your eye, I feel. Yellow isn't always a color that works well, but I think it works here. And this is a Miss Marple mystery. I've never read Miss Marple. I've watched some of the TV show, but I've only read Hercule Poirot novels. So I'm excited to read a Miss Marple novel, and hopefully it will be just as good as every other Agatha Christie book I have read. I also have some Poirot mysteries. I have Taken at the Flood, which I don't really know anything about, and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which is much of her longer novels. Most of her books like 230 to 270 pages normally. This one is about 300. And it's a pretty, heavy book comparatively. And also, it's one of those books that's more it's more read of hers. When I look at Goodreads, there's a ton of reviews of this one, and I think it's one of her earlier ones. It looks like this and the Affair at Styles are some of the earliest ones that she wrote. And I believe, if my memory serves correctly, my roommate from college read this and really enjoyed it, but I'd have to ask him. So I'm really excited to get into those Agatha Christie books. Next, I have a Star Trek trade paperback book, and that is Dayton Ward's discovery novel, Drastic Measures. I got this for a couple of reasons. One, it was very cheap at the bookstore. Two, Dayton Ward has a new Star Trek novel coming out in May of this year, and so I wanted to get into his books. And I've read a lot of his Star Trek books, and he's one of those authors that consistently hits like 4 out of 5. Like almost every book of his is a 4 out of 5 stars. Rarely, there's a few of his that went to 3 stars or 2 stars, and there's 2 of his books that just edged into 5 stars. But most of his books are 4 stars. And so I'm like, I'm always enjoying his books. Now, I cannot stand the TV show Discovery, but I do like the books for Discovery, and I did like the character, Michelle Yeoh's character, and Jason Isaacs' character in the show. I think that they were way, way underutilized. They should have been used a lot more. So I'm excited to read this book and see what happens. And then I also have some Dayton Ward non-Star Trek books. This is such an interesting topic here. He's really only written Star Trek. He's written like over 30 Star Trek novels, but he has 2 novels, at least well-known novels, that are not Star Trek. He wrote a few tie-in books for other franchises, but he wrote his own series, The Last World War and The Last World War Counter-Strike, or Counter-Strike, The Last World War. And this book was written in 2003. This book was written in 2010. And for one thing, I've never really heard of these books other than just seeing them on his bio before. And also, nobody has reviewed them. There's like no reviews of these on anywhere. There are barely any on Goodreads or Amazon, which is surprising that it got a sequel compared to because of how few copies it sold. But what's interesting about it is it's sold through pocketbooks, and pocketbooks didn't always do this type of story, and pocketbooks really doesn't do anything right now. But they've not usually branched out beyond Star Trek and a few other series that they've done. So I'm interested to read this series. Dayton Ward has a military background, so I think that his military background will work on these. I found these at different bookstores. I found one at one bookstore, knowing that the other was at another. I've seen this one in the smaller bookstore for like a year now, and I was like, I just don't want to get the book yet. And then I saw the first book in the other bookstore recently, and I snatched it up, and I was like, now I can go get the other one. So that was interesting. Surprisingly, no one had purchased the book, or maybe not so surprising, apparently. Next, I got another novelization, this one by J.M. Dillard, of Generations. The Star Trek movie that the first time I watched it, I loved it, and every subsequent rewatch, it has slipped and slipped and slipped and slipped for me. I think the first 5-10 minutes of this movie are pure genius, and the rest of this movie is pretty boring. It's just my opinion about the movie. But maybe, again, J.M. Dillard and Vonda McIntyre, the 2 big novelization writers, have a knack for taking a story that I didn't love or that I did love and making me love it more. So hopefully I'll actually enjoy this quite a lot. I have a lot of hope for it. Next, I have another Voyager novel, Spirit Walk Book 2, Enemy of My Enemy by Christie Golden. I've read most of the Christie Golden Voyager books, although it seems like every time I look up her bio, I see more and more Star Trek novels under her name, and I'm like, at first I was like, okay, I thought I collected them all. Okay, I didn't. Like, I just kept seeing like there was so many that she wrote, and she hasn't written for Star Trek in quite a while. But in December, I found book 1 of the Spirit Walk duology, which to me has been the hardest Star Trek books to find, and now I have book 2, and I'm super excited about it. Christie Golden, when she was writing Voyager, like at the time it was like, man, she does a pretty good job of it. Like she's got a good handle of the characters. And then Kirsten Beyer came in, and I was like, oh, Christie didn't have that great control comparatively to Kirsten Beyer, although Kirsten Beyer's last book slipped a little. So I'm interested to see if I'll actually enjoy these books when I read them. They should be quick, fun reads. These are the last ones that this particular is the last Star Trek novel that Christie Golden wrote, last one that she published. I hope they can get her back for Voyager's 30th anniversary. My pitch is to get Christie Golden and Kirsten Meyer and a new author to write Voyager novels, to write a trilogy. And you have the OG Voyager writer, at least when it comes to novelists, Christie Golden, write the first novel in the trilogy. And then you have this person who took the baton from her, Kirsten, who had it for about 10 years, and let Kirsten write a bigger novel, and then give it to someone new, someone who hasn't written Voyager, but who will write Voyager for the next 10 years, and like make it a passing of the batons. I think that'd be a great idea. I don't know why they haven't done something like that yet. Hopefully for the 30th anniversary they'll do that. But really excited to read this one. All right, next I have copies of a book that I already owned in another format, but I really, really wanted this format. So I have the trade paperbacks of the Dune House series, the prequel series. House Atreides, House Harkonnen, House Carino by Kevin Anderson and Brian Herbert. And the trade paperback copies are just basically like a single color, green, purple, or orange, and they're just words on them. Like there's like no artwork, there's no creativity really behind it. It's just bland. And I didn't like the design, but I got them because they were the only copies available at Dragon Con that I could find, and Kevin Anderson was doing the signing that moment. And I was like, if I don't buy this books now and get them signed, I don't know if I'll ever get a signing again. So I wanted to go ahead and snatch up the books, which I did. But then at the used bookstore, I found the same trilogy in its mass market paperback form with the original type covers, and I just love these covers. I wish they had stuck with this when they went to trade paperback. So you have Dune, House Atreides, with just that, I wish that this part of the cover was the full thing and the writing was just, on the sky or something. But still, you have some artwork here, and it wraps around on the back, and it does it in a more full design. Like this, man, the artwork here is great. And let me see who did the artwork on this one, because it's very well done. David King did the maps. Hang on. Stephen Ewell did the maps, or did the cover for this one. He also did the cover for House Harkonnen. Unfortunately, this one's a little torn in the back, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm more gunning it for the cover, for the look of it, which I think just looks evil. Like this one, maybe this is what House Atreides feels like, maybe, but they're more, I associate it with Kaladin than I do with the desert. This is like exactly what I feel House Harkonnen feels like. Like they nailed the artwork here. And then you have House Carino, the third book, which again feels like they nailed it. And of course you have that back cover, but I think they nailed it again with House Carino. So that is the Dune House trilogy. Houses trilogy. I read the first book already. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. My review should be soon. Actually no, as this video goes up, the review's already come out. And I will be, as I'm recording this, I'm about to read this next, Dune House Harkonnen next week. So I'm excited. I'm excited to read this, read these books, and I'll probably keep reading the trade paperbacks because that's the format I've already started on, but those are my displays to keep nice. Next I have books, and I don't know what compelled me to buy these. The next three books I have, it's weird, my book buying choice. So I read Dan Simmons's Hyperion and bought the sequel, and I haven't read the sequel yet, but I have Hyperion, and it was a book that just I loved it and I hated it. It was a weird combination. And I've been teaching Greek history to my history class, and so we've been talking about the Iliad and the Odyssey, and we've been talking about Homer and Greek literature, and we've been talking about what's real, what's not real in the myths, all that type of stuff. And I saw these books a couple weeks ago, and I was going to get them, and then I saw the Agatha Christie books, and I said, nope, you books go away, I'm getting the Agatha Christie. And then today, when I was in the bookstore, I saw Ilium and Olympus, both by Dan Simmons, and I thought, you know what, this might be interesting. So from what I understand, this is like a retelling of the Iliad, and this one's a retelling of the Odyssey, but in a science fiction format. And it doesn't seem like it's just like someone who is influenced by these and are using the template. It seems like the characters, like all the Greek gods and characters, Agamemnon and Zeus and all that stuff, all of them show up in here. So it's like really like a science fictionized version of the Iliad and of the Odyssey. So I'm just really curious about this, and the ratings that I saw for this were superb. So I'm really interested. They're long and they're thick, and the writing seems to be a little dense, which I'm a little bit concerned about. But still, these looked interesting. So if you've read these books, let me know what you think of them, and did you enjoy them? And hopefully I will read them and enjoy them. Finally, the last book I got is another bind-up. I started this video with a bind-up, and I'm ending it with a bind-up. And this is a genre and an author that, under normal circumstances, I would have absolutely no intention of ever reading whatsoever. But one of my favorite booktubers, Brian Lee Durfee, who really is doing legwork in the book genre. Like, I do not think that people understand just how important Brian Lee Durfee is. He reviews a book just about every day, and he talks about books that people don't always talk about, and he is pushing all the genres, even books that are old, books that are new. He pushes every genre. And I think that he's doing so much good for the literary community. People should check him out, his channel. But he talks about his favorite books of all time, and I bought Pillars of the Earth based off his recommendations so I could read it. And I was like, I've been looking for this book, The Lonesome Dove, for months. And I couldn't find it in any bookstores. It's just not there. It's not in used bookstores. It's not in news bookstores even. It's just not present. And there's plenty of Larry McMurtry books, but no Lonesome Dove. And I was like, I don't want to read any Larry McMurtry until I've read Lonesome Dove, because that's like the linchpin, the one that everyone says to read. And so I just was like, I'm just looking for it. Couldn't find it. Then the other day I was in the used bookstore and I found this bind-up, and it includes Lonesome Dove, Leaving Cheyenne, and The Last Picture Show. And I read the write-ups for Leaving Cheyenne and Last Picture Show, and I was like, these don't really interest me that much. To be honest, Lonesome Dove doesn't either, but Brian Lee Durfee says this is one of his top 5 novels of all time. So I'll test it out. But I got this bind-up, and it was a little expensive. It already had the Demco book cover on it, by the way, which I thought was a little funny because it already has that nice crinkly look, nice glossy look. But Lonesome Dove takes up like more than 2/3 of the book. Like almost 3/4 of this chunker is just Lonesome Dove, and then the last like third or quarter of the book is the other 2 books combined, which means the other 2 books are really short comparatively, and also means that Lonesome Dove is really long. So I got 3 books for the price of 1, but it's pretty much the 1 book in here. I don't know when I'm going to get to this. I'm guessing this is going to be a summer read, because it's huge, and I just don't have time to read a chunker like this yet. But I'm interested to see what this book is like. So I'm branching into new genres. I've branched into, every year I've branched into new genres, and so I guess this year I'm going to branch into Westerns. So we'll see what I think. Hopefully this will not make me go up and buy a bajillion Westerns like I have with all the other genres. So that is my huge book haul. If you have read any of the books I talked about today, let me know in the comments section which book was you liked, which was your favorite, which ones did you like, didn't like, which books do you intend to read of this, and did you buy any books this month? Let me know what your book haul was. Leave all those thoughts in the comments, and I have lots of book reviews and lots of videos on my channel, so please subscribe, and until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.